So mine is a mixture of stuff that definitely happened and a little bit of mysticism and magical stuff that may not actually happen, but who knows, I'm not going to be the one to explain how the universe works. But this is some interesting stuff that actually happened. It's actually kind of terrifying. This actually comes from a user that that I had read, and his name is I know I am very hot. This is not an erotic piece, though, thankfully.
So that's his name? Hold on, that's his name?
Yeah, I know I am very hot. That's his username.
But he's got a hot, spicy story for us here.
Yeah. Also, I want to say this in advance. English is not his first language, so I'm going to try to read this as normally as possible, but some of the words I might stumble over because of the syntaxing, but okay. Should be good. Okay, back in 2010, I was 20 years old. It was my sophomore year in university. I found a bunch of old and antique photos of the family from my grandpa's side, my father's father, taken in 1910, 1915, 1917, 1920, and 1935. Two photos caught my attention, which were taken in 1915. Each photo had an inscription. One said, "This photo taken March 15th, 1915, of the Dhaka with a stamp saying Surat, India." I am Thai, but the family photo was taken in India. One photo is a group photo consisting of 10 people wearing all white, and the women wore a huge amount of gold jewelry on them. The second photo consisted of 12 people taken in the same area, but are moved up to the second floor of the house. I took these two photos to my grandpa and asked where they were taken and who are they. Grandpa looked at the photos for a few seconds and said, "Oh, this is Dad's house, the great-grandfather, in Surat, India. The haunted mansion I used to tell you about when you were young." At that time, my grandpa was already 95 years old. He took the first photo and told me to move close to him, and he started pointing. The man at the back on the left is my dad. That's the great-grandfather. And the man next to him is my half-brother. Dad married my mom when his first wife passed away. In the second row, the lady on the very left is my mom, the great-grandmother. As you can see, she looks quite different from the rest because she is Siamese, or what they called Thailand, at the time of Siam. So, at the time this photo was taken, I was inside her tummy. That's what the grandpa said. The lady next to her is another in-law, my half-brother's wife. The fourth lady sitting in the middle of the photo is my grandmother, so this would be a great-grandma. The lady on her left is her younger sister, who remains single, and the rest of the people in this photo I can't remember. They look at the second photo. This is the right corner house facing the backyard beside the family cemetery. And you see the balcony on the right side of the photo. That leads to the third floor of the house, where there are 3 water tanks supplying for the whole house. It is where we found the in-law's body. And you see the infant that my half-brother is holding. He is my older brother and almost died from being sacrificed. He was saved by the in-law who was murdered later. The door behind my half-brother is my dad's bedroom. It's painted crimson red. Grandpa talked with a neutral tone, as if what he just said is a normal thing that happens every day. Then my grandpa looked at the first photo again, and he pointed at his grandma, the great-grandmother. This person killed, and he moved his finger to the brother-in-law's, or the half-brother's wife, killed her, and she haunted grandma for the rest of her life. In Surat, India, there's the local belief that happens once in a blue moon on how to attain wealth in a shortcut way. It's said that a child who was born in the early of the year with a specific body marking is the key person of the ritual. Once one of the family members receives a sign and information about the auspicious date, they will then have to princely dress the infant and put the infant in front of a specific cave instructed to them. You're allowed to go into the cave and take out treasure, and then you never look back at the infant ever again. Yes, I know you must be like, what? How? Why? I asked Grandpa the same question. Why? And he said, greed. Greed is the only thing made you willing to sacrifice others in exchange for treasure. How? Grandpa said he heard the entities showed up in each family in different ways. It appeared to his grandmother in her dreams, saying if it wants the youngest infant, which would be the grandpa's older brother who was just born. The grandpa wasn't born yet. So the entity wanted this infant, dressed the infant up, and put him in front of this cave. And then he asked his grandpa, well, what is this thing? And the grandpa said, depends on your beliefs. Some say it's a demon, some say it's a deity. The Gujarati Muslim call it a jinn. I asked my grandpa, why did your grandma want more wealth? Because you were super rich at the time. And his grandpa simply said again, greed. So, back in 1915, his great-grandmother was still a few months pregnant with the grandpa. Her husband and stepson went back to Bangkok to work at their family business to get, and so she was the only one there that spoke Siamese or Thai, and in India. And so the grandma comes to her, the great grandma comes to her and says, I want your 1-year-old kid. I want to sacrifice him for this treasure. And she was just supposed to accept it. But the half brother and his wife, she was able to save the baby from being sacrificed. She figured out the date of the sacrifice. As soon as she got the information, she telegrammed the father and told him that this was going to happen. And so he got back as fast as he could and yelled at his mom, telling him she's not allowed to sacrifice his kid. At this point, the user, he asked his grandpa, what would happen to the infant if the ritual went forward? And he said what he had heard from other locals and from his father and other people is after you put the infant in front of the thing, you go in, you go get treasure, and you're not supposed to look at the infant ever again. And as you're walking away, you'll hear a snap, like a neck is being broken. And if at any point that you were to look back, the treasure in your hand would disappear, but the baby would be alive, but they would be either blind, unable to speak, or deaf. That was the downfall of your action of greed. So, growing up in the mansion, Grandpa knew that his grandma and that in-law never liked each other ever again because she stopped the ritual from happening by getting the father to come back and stop it. And one day, the in-law went missing. No one saw her for a week. Then, one day, the housemaid went up to the upper level to check the water level in the tanks. She had to do every so often to make sure there was plenty in there. And she started screaming at the top of her lungs. Everyone rushed her. And they found the in-law's body was in the water. She was dead. She didn't go up there and drown herself. It was clear that she was murdered. And they knew the only person in the family that would do that would be the grandma. But she was also the matriarch of the family. There was no talking back against her. Then he said that his his grandpa said that his grandpa started saying that he saw the ghost of the in-law a few days after the body was found. And then she started torturing the grandma every day, keeping her awake all night long. Or like grabbing her legs while she's underneath, while they're sitting at a table. And she kept complaining about all these horrible things this ghost was doing. It happened for 8 straight years. Then the grandma was on her deathbed, and she confessed to murdering the in-law because she prevented the ritual from happening. And then she died, and the ghost seemingly disappeared. Then that infant that was going to be sacrificed lived into their early 90s and then passed away of old age. And his grandpa then went on to tell him, he said, India is a land of wonders. Everything that you could imagine could be found there. A magic trick, all the rituals and paranormal activities, and living folklore can be found there.
Wow. There's some comments from across social media. Some would say, what a story on YouTube. Someone is saying, Lucas watched too much anime. I don't really.
Yeah, this was an interesting story to me. I like stories from other countries a lot.
Yeah.
I like reading, especially folklore and mysticism. I do believe that this woman was going to sacrifice this infant. I do believe that's a true story. And I do believe that she murdered, because she did confess it to all their assembled family, that she did murder that woman. Whether you believe in the jinn or you believe in any of the other stuff, like the ghost, that's up for, interpretation for everyone. But this was definitely a thing that happened. And, it happened all over the world. It wasn't just India that had folklore, ritualistic sacrifice and stuff like that. So I found this to be a very interesting story because that kind of dark magic is definitely something I like reading about. Obviously would never think that was a thing that anyone should do, but I do think it's a really interesting part of human history is reading these dark rituals and things that people had done.
Your thoughts, Jack?
I mean, it's wild, because so much happened. But also, I don't know. I guess I kind of do believe in, that type of stuff, the supernatural stuff. And so, just the thought of it out there in the middle of the woods, is this jinn that requires such a intense thing for something so small like money is unsettling.
Is money and greed the root of all evil? Is that you're telling me?
Well, greed, I guess, but
she was really that worried about the sacrifice not happening, though, willing to
murder someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, so they were always, people who supposedly did this ritual had something of great value given to them, something that beyond what a normal rich person, which they were normal rich people. So this was something that she was thinking, wow, we're going to get something so wonderful. And all we have to do is sacrifice this baby.
That's all.
And this was just how it was done.
Holy shit. Jack, you're up next.
Okay, well,